In my last video I demonstrated calling ChatGPT from the Spectrum Next using the CSpect emulator. For that video I demonstrated calling a simple question, what object do you want to know the colour of, and ChatGPT would come back with the answer. So for example, if I want to know the colour of ZX81, then pause for 5 seconds and press enter, and it comes back. The ZX81 was typically sold in a light grey colour, which I'm not sure about that, it was more of a dark grey really. But in this video I'm gonna broaden the question, so you can ask pretty much anything like you would be able to if you went directly through the ChatGPT interface. So the question this time, when I run the software, is ask me anything. So the first question I'm going to ask is, how many chips were there? How many chips are there in the Spectrum Next? Just give it 5 seconds to think about it. And it's thought about and it's come back. There's no definitive answer to this question, as the number of chips in the spectrum can vary depending on the model, which seems fair enough. So next, I'm going to ask, what is the CPU of the Spectrum Next? Give it 5 seconds. And it's come back saying that the CPU was a Zilog Z80 chip, which was correct for the actual original ZX Spectrum, but the Next uses an FPGA chip, so not quite right. Next question, how much memory does the Spectrum Next have? I don't know the answer to this question, so it'll be interesting to see what it says. So it's saying the Spectrum Next has 1 GB of RAM. But that question I'd have to fact check that, because I don't know the answer to that. And then next question, when was the Spectrum Next Kickstarter begun? So this should be before the day of that the ChatGPT was took its data, and it's saying that it was launched in April 4th, 2017. Which sounds about right. Next, I'm going to ask, how many versions of the Spectrum Next are there? Give it 5 seconds. And it's saying there's currently 2 versions of the Spectrum Next, the Spectrum Next and the Spectrum Next Plus, which sounds about right. And then going back a bit further, what is the nickname for the ZX Spectrum? Okay, so the ZX Spectrum is often referred to as the Specky, which is correct. Then ask, what were the ZX Spectrum's competitors? Give it 5 seconds. And it's saying that it was the Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, and the BBC Micro. Sounds about right. Then I'm going to ask, name 3 of the best ZX Spectrum games. So Jet Set Willy, Manic Miner and Night Law. Sounds bang on. How many, the penultimate question, how many graphic modes does the Spectrum next have? And again, with this one, I don't actually know the answer to this. But it's saying there are 3, 256 by 192, 512, and 1024. So I don't know if that's correct or not. I'd have to fact check that one. And then finally, who designed the case for the ZX Spectrum? Five seconds. And it says correctly, Rick Dickinson designed it. So that's an example of the Next talking to ChatGPT. Kind of amazing that a computer like this can actually talk to the internet, to the latest AI. So just to look at the code changes that I've made for this to work, I've got 2 new endpoints. I've got a post endpoint. So whereas before I was just using a get with a parameter for the color, for the object that I wanted the color of, I'm posting the question. So the question comes across from CSpect as 7 bits, as base 64, so I need to decode that. And then I run a task in the background, do question work, do any question work, which runs a task, puts the result into a database table, and then the second endpoint is poll last, which I'm calling after the 5-second delay, and it just pulls out the answer to the last question I asked and returns it base 64 encoded, so that CSpect can handle it. And then the code on the next is pretty similar. I've just changed the question to ask me anything. Instead of using a get, I'm using a post. So at line 5, I call the post endpoint, and then at line 10, call the HTTP library with post rather than get. And I put the question into bank 20, So then press return after 5 seconds, and then on line 30 I get the answer to the question, again with bank 20. I've increased the number of characters to 1,000 characters to handle these longer questions. So that's an example of the next talking to an AI. I hope this has been interesting.